Welcome to Tell Us Why, a podcast for the financial freedom community. If you're looking to succeed in your quest for financial freedom, make sure you join us every week as we, along with our guests, discuss different stories of success, how they were achieved, and how you can do the same. And of course, we ask them to tell us why. Here are your hosts, Jack and Mike.
Welcome to the Tell Us Why podcast. I'm your host, Jack Darrapple, here alongside my co-host, Mr. Michael Ketchen. As a practicing real estate attorney, Bonnie Galam found out that most real estate investors were risking literally everything they own because they didn't have the proper legal documents in place. She tells her clients that if you become successful investing in real estate, it's not a matter of if, but when you will get sued. I know yes, Mike and I can attest to that, but having the proper legal documents in place from day one can help you prevent expensive lawsuits, protect your properties, streamline your investing business, and more. That's where Bonnie comes in. With her easy, on-demand, do-it-yourself legal templates and trainings, investors like you can get the legal stuff in place and invest confidently. That was by far my best intro. I had one little tiny slip up, but that was pretty good.
I think the people can attest. It's a very low bar and you crossed it. Congratulations.
I don't disagree. But Mike, what do you think about this episode?
Yeah, listen. This was such a cool episode and such a great guest because not only is she trying to help people and add value, she's also thinking like an investor as an attorney.
Yeah.
And that was refreshing. And you don't see that a lot. So many tidbits. She's also an entrepreneur, so you can relate to that. But honestly, she's trying to add value. And I feel like whenever you're adding value, that's really what entrepreneurship is. You're solving problems. So many great moments. And I think it was great. I mean, I think you agree. Is that what we're taking away here?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like most people, like, she makes a comment that don't go through life just like checking boxes. Like, as a lawyer, I feel like that's incredibly difficult to say because how do you be an entrepreneur when you're a lawyer? You've literally spent what is it? 2/3 of her life, like in law school, like she passed the bar and then now she's like, oh, okay, now I'm going to do something different. Like what? Yeah. Like if she's able to leave her lawyer job, being a lawyer, I mean, she's doing something along those lines with the website and what we just discussed, but like, if she can leave that, then you can leave your job and do what you want to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So before we get to the great episode of Bonnie, though, should we hear what this week's episode is brought to us by?
Let's do
it. Are you sick of being treated like just another number by large insurance companies? Do you want a more personalized experience with somebody that you can trust? With Keith Monteith, that's exactly what you'll get. Keith is an experienced professional who can design an insurance plan tailored to fit your specific needs. With access to over 30 insurance carriers, Keith is able to shop numerous markets to find a price that works for you. So if you want an insurance agent that you can rely on and one that has your best interests at heart, then call or text Keith today on 978-241-2363. That's 978-241-2363. Keith Monty. He'll get you covered.
Okay, so Bonnie is a real estate investor and recovering real estate attorney who helps real estate investors cover their assets using on-demand trainings and do-it-yourself legal templates. Bonnie is a mom of two, bookworm, black thumb, and a full-time landlord, and also a wife. But Bonnie, welcome to the Tell Us Why podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Thank you for being here. And we got to be careful, Jack, because as you just said, cover their assets. I think that's attorney. I just call cover your assets when it sees attorney. So you got to be careful with that. So, yeah, Bonnie, thank you for being here. And lots to unpack there. What is a recovering attorney? What's going on with that in the business?
Look, so law school is like not what they crack it out to be. What I would say is that I was a real estate investor before I was a real estate attorney. And just due to the nature of the business and being an attorney, I've become kind of obsessed with real estate law. Like I think it's fascinating. I think it's a great area to learn more about, to make my own real estate investments more profitable. And I definitely have done that. But one of the things, and some of this just had to do with timing of the universe, was that when I started my law firm 3 years ago, I didn't know that I was starting this and entering the world's craziest real estate market. And I think that kind of goes nationwide, no matter where you're listening to this from. But the reality is that I went from like 0 to 150, and I know what I'm doing. But at some point it just got to be, it took the joy out of real estate a little bit for me. And on the flip side, I was learning more about my own clients. I was learning more about what their needs were. And I saw that there was this gap in the market where you didn't quite need to have a real estate attorney. And in fact, most people were not using real estate attorneys, every time they onboarded a new tenant or hired a contractor, but they were still screwing things up and making legal mistakes. And so I thought, I'm like, how is there a way that I can kind of fill in the gap between the traditional law firm model and where real estate investors actually kind of need help and being their own best advocate in this stuff that they're always going to kind of handle on their own. I mean, I saw it myself. I'm a real estate investor, like I said, first. And so I knew that there were things that they were just never going to pay someone, $400, $450 an hour to answer for them. And that's not a bad thing, but it's not a bad thing so long as you're making good decisions along the way. And I just wanted to create something that would empower other real estate investors to make good decisions, empowered decisions throughout their own real estate investing journey.
Yeah. And I have like 20 things to unpack with everything you just said. Because as Jack knows, I fortunately have an attorney in the family who's a real estate focused attorney. And luckily, she's my mother-in-law. So we've been spoiled with the family rate, even though now with the way we've scaled to as big as we are, I think that's going away. It's becoming too much. But something you just touched on right there, and I kind of lump, attorneys and CPAs and insurance gentlemen, carriers, agents in, where we say it all the time, and Jack's heard it, and we say, there's 3 things you shouldn't get cheap on in your business with your team members. And I really think they are team members. So as a real estate investor first, what I want to ask you, because now you've been on both sides of it, it must be maddening to see people, make these multi-million-dollar decisions, do everything right. And it's like fumbling at the goal line before you go in for the touchdown. Like the person who's on your side to protect you, why would you get cheap on this? I mean, is that a little bit of what you were seeing and coming from?
Yeah. And I think some of it is just the way that we talk about legal as real estate investors, that we see lawyers as people who are there to clean up the messes. They don't always think of real estate attorneys or just attorneys in general as someone who can like save you money. We kind of just seem like this bottomless pit of like, maybe this will pay off and protect me or something like that. I also have kind of found that there's this, when we're real estate investing or, getting any sort of, financial independence type of journey, that our focus is on growth. Like we're not kind of looking to have someone. And the reality is I think a lot of real estate attorneys have this like deal killing reputation, or like they're going to be like a Debbie Downer about everything. And like, you don't want that person in your ear. But the reality is you need a little bit of that voice of like caution or reason. And so totally. I mean, I think, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, and legal can really do that for real estate investors if you're, utilizing it in a cost-efficient way. Now, that being said, you don't want to treat your lawyer like Google, and that can get very expensive very fast. But if, you're really kind of starting off, you may need something to kind of point you in the right direction and say, hey, like, do you even know about the security deposit law? Or do you even know like the right questions to ask a contractor? Like, what should you be signing? What, are red flags? What is a title commitment? What should I be looking for on a survey? Like all that type of stuff is like really freaking important. And you don't need to be paying an attorney, hundreds of dollars an hour to answer that stuff for you, but you also need to know how to answer it for yourself.
Oh yeah. And I'll tell a quick story to the Tell Us Why community. On our very first transaction, we're just looking at the HUD. It's the first one we ever did. And we had title insurance, and my attorney, I said, what's this? I think it was like $500 or something. And she said, I'll explain later, but you need that. Well, fast forward, our second transaction, we're going to refi it the second time. And all of a sudden I get this letter saying we owe like 40 grand. I'm like, what? So I call up the attorney, first phone call you make. And I go, what do you do? She goes, you do nothing because you had title insurance. Well, come to find out, the gentleman that we bought the property from had liens outstanding for child support. And whoever worked in the registry of deeds, when they went to file the previous time, it wasn't caught, it was missed, whatever. Well, I think it's funny because, as real estate investors, title insurance is a perfect example. There's a lot of people who rally against it. It's a scam. It's this, it's that. As someone who's been on the other side of needing it, we pay for it in every transaction and we don't question it because we've also seen that would have been $40,000 that we didn't have that time early on in our career. I mean, Bonnie, I'm sure you've got a million instances like this.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say that's what I will not back at my firm. I wouldn't take a transaction if there was no title insurance. Like there's like, oh, it's a simple thing. I know the guy, or it's my brother, it's my mother. I'm like, I don't care. If you want me to be your lawyer as a part of this, then you're going to need to have title insurance because it's one of those things where it's like you pay for it once. It's not even like your property and casualty insurance where, you're paying for it all the time. It's you pay for it once and that's it. It's like you put a line in the sand and then you're protected. And it's again, you don't want to be penny wise and pound cheap when it comes to the stuff that can really protect your business. Because even if you did have $40,000 laying around, you don't want to be paying some other guy's child support for that. Like that's your money. And it shouldn't be going towards something that is not your legal responsibility, and utilizing something like title insurance is exactly why you can be protected. I mean, I've seen issues where it's as small as like a few $100s, where it's like, oh, there was a municipal violation for like not mowing the lawn and it popped up later, to years of back taxes that were not paid. You don't know. And you're relying on other people to do that part of due diligence for you. And you can't really do it yourself. I've never found someone who's like, I'm just going to DIY my own title search and just rest on that, because the reality is it's unreliable. You're dealing with public records that are created by other human beings. And so it's just subject to error, subject to mistake, and things can and often do pop up.
Yep. And
Mike, I just want to throw something in there, like that 40K bombshell. If that happened, if you weren't prepared, and I think this is what Bonnie is kind of getting at with her, which we'll get to. But if you don't set that up correctly in the beginning, that $40,000 bombshell, like you have what, 200 plus units at this point? Like that 40K bombshell could have taken you out and you could be back not financially free. That could have derailed your entire life had you not paid that $500. I mean, that's a life-changing event had you not paid that $500.
I have so many instances, and like another one that I really want to touch on with Bonnie, like all these thoughts are coming, and this is like such a great opportunity. Bonnie, you can speak to this, and this is something that I laugh. And Jack, I don't know if you've come across this a lot, but I guarantee Bonnie's about to light up when I say this. My favorite is, I'm in New England, right? So when we're in New England, I'm going to start wholesaling. Well, what people don't realize is real estate in New England in itself is much more unique than the rest of the country, given the age of New England. So you'll get a lot of people, I want to wholesale in Massachusetts, New Hampshire. Well, this isn't, you go down, like I hear a lot of people like out in, the Midwest where, maybe the property, you're talking a couple hundred years, not as old, and they can do a title search same day. New England, you need to work in, usually it's at least a couple of weeks on a title search. So Bonnie, do you want to touch on that too, why it's area specific and why knowing your team, because your legal representation is part of your team, why that's so important as well?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, when we're talking about title search, we're talking about basically the history of who's owned the land since land records were being created. And so up here in the Northeast, we're part of the 13 original colonies. And so we've got hundreds and hundreds of years of records, often for particularly more like metropolitan areas, like the greater Boston area, the greater New York City area, the greater Philadelphia area. I mean, there's been people living in these areas under, I'll say, English common law, using like this title property system for hundreds of years. And there have been things, even just like the slightest mistake of like boundary lines with surveys. And that's another thing, going in with title is, I always recommend, if it's not like a condominium, you should be getting a survey, because you just never know. I mean, extra little, 6-inch lots will pop up, or, your neighbor's garage is actually in your driveway, and your driveway is in the neighbor's yard. I mean, the things that you could just think like, I would never put my driveway in my neighbor's yard. And so you just think, why do we even need to look for that? Well, because things happen. And even sometimes it's a matter of like, the earth has changed. I mean, I was listening to a podcast the other day about how the Rio Grande River has moved over the centuries, and the US law and agreement with Mexico is that the boundaries where the Rio Grande is. And so there's been parts of Texas that have been the US, and then they've been part of Mexico. And it just kind of moves around, and people have rerouted the river, and it's a whole thing. And all of that kind of comes back to title. And so you want to make sure that that whole chain, that there hasn't been any sort of break in it. And that doesn't just mean like fraudulent deeds. I mean, that's an actual problem, particularly here in like the greater Philadelphia area, is that there's been a lot of people forging and creating fraudulent deeds. But you also have to think about, have people, have they died? Has that probate process gone through properly? Do we actually know that the people who are signing the deed today, did they even receive it properly? And if everyone has had title insurance for as long as that industry has been around, then yeah, you're probably pretty good. And if not, you've got the insurance policy to back it up. And I know a lot of people, can kind of see it as like a racket, where it's like, it's not one of those things where it's likely you're going to have a problem. But if you do have a problem, it is very likely that it's going to be very expensive. And so there are very few cheap legal problems, and that applies to title as well. And so if you can insure against it, I think it's one of those things where it's like, of course, do not pass go, get the title insurance. I kind of feel the same way about like umbrella policies and other types of insurance, where it's just like the cost benefit is so great that it's like, don't waste your energy thinking like 30 seconds about it. Just like make the decision as a business owner, move on, and just say like, hey, when we purchase properties, we use title insurance. I don't have to like use a brain cell to think about that. And you just keep going.
I would say, we can go on in that forever, but what I want to ask, and because I want to give the listeners, and I'm sure there's gonna be a bunch of follow-up questions, but the name of the show is Tell Us Why, and we get into people's why. And as I'm sitting here talking with you and talking with Jack, I mean, you're double crazy. You go and do an attorney and a real estate investor. So you got to have some hell of a motivation. So what is the why to build this unique lifestyle and get into that? What is your motivation? What is pushing you? What are you making decisions on? Because these are two really ambitious, yes, they're self-rewarding, but there's also, these are hard industries that you've gone into and that you're succeeding at. So what is the why? What is the motivation there?
So I think the why for me has always been time flexibility. Flexibility to, whether it's to be there for my kids, or we've got family that lives outside the country, to be able to say like, hey, I'm going to go take 3 weeks and I'm going to go somewhere else. Well, if I worked for myself, or if I was not for myself, if I worked in like a traditional 9 to 5, well, I don't have enough PTO to even see the family I want to see. And so how do I create a life where I can live the life that I want, whether that's I want to work really, really hard for a few years, or maybe right now I want to figure out how to not be a black thumb and not kill every plant that comes into my house. Yes. And to be able to say like, hey, I want to make my work fit me as opposed to make me fit my work. And that was something that I kind of realized very early on as an attorney, where I was like, oh my gosh, like I was working for the government for several years, and I was, had the Cadillac of health insurance, and I had the best, PTO compared to like all of my other friends who were in like private practice. And I was still struggling, especially once I became a mom. I was just like, it's one too many things. And that's kind of around the time frame where we had reached a critical mass of rental properties that my husband could leave his job and focus full-time on growing our portfolio. And I'll admit, I think I got a little bit of jealous of him, where I was just like, yo, I want in on this lifestyle too. And he's like, all right, well then, help me out with the real estate stuff.
That's exactly what I'm going for right now with my wife. So
yeah, it's hard. I mean, and now that I joke somewhat that he's, a full-time landlord, but he doesn't really work full-time hours. Like he pays the bills, he responds to maintenance calls if we need to, and then he goes to the gym for like 2.5 hours a day. And so he has a very good, flexible life. And I wanted to create that for myself. And the firm was that for me for many years. And then now it's kind of gotten to a point where I'm like a slave to other people's deadlines. And I could see, I'm like, I didn't work this hard to work this hard. And I wanted to figure out another way that I could kind of still keep the legal hat on, still work with real estate investors. And that's really where Landlord Law School was kind of born out of, was hearing like my clients' needs, but then also saying like, how can I kind of combine everything so that way I can get the best of both worlds as well, and not, run myself into a hole trying to be everything for everyone.
It's interesting because I have a cousin-in-law, I don't know what to call it. And she's incredibly smart, a lawyer. She just finished law school. She just started a job and she's making great money. I'm not going to argue with that at all. But she's working about 14 hours a day, and it's like 6 days a week. And I'm like, I have like, that would absolutely kill me. Like, granted, she doesn't have a child or anything like that, recently married, but she's like, when you graduate law school, you're not 18 years old, you're not 20 years old. Like, it takes a long time to get through law school. And after putting in all that work, you're like, all right, I made it, I passed the bar. And then it's, well, now I have to
And you're like, cool,
grind
now I'm working 80,
or
100-hour
whatever it is
weeks.
before I can become a partner, and then kind of relax a little bit. I'm like, it's a lot of work that goes into it. And I guess,
Look, I went through all of that myself. I mean, there's a lot of, I'll say, like, status around being a lawyer or a doctor or certain like professions where it's just like you get out and it's like you are supposed to be the one who works the hardest, who's the last one there. And like if you're not, it's like you're almost questioned as to your dedication or your work ethic. And being able to kind of step back over the past few years and kind of say like, hey, that is not what success looks for me, is 14-hour days. And so being able to kind of like remove my ego from it a little bit and say, hey, like this is really what I value. What I value and what I want people to talk about at my funeral is like, not that I was the best real estate attorney in the world. It's not. I could build that reputation up and like live and die by it. And I see those, obituaries in the Bar Association newsletter, but like, that's not what I want for me. I want to like be happy. I want to be, healthy. I want to be with my kids. I want to like travel and do all of this stuff. And I don't want to wait till I'm like 55 or 60 and loaded to do that. And that's unfortunately what happens for a lot of us in these, I'll say these professional career paths where it's like, you're supposed to burn the candle at both ends through, your late 20s, through your 30s, through your 40s, where you're at your peak. And then maybe sometime after that, you'll be able to like have a weekend or a vacation where you're actually on your phone or your laptop the whole time. I mean, I have those friends who, they bring their laptop out to dinner in case they need to respond to something. I mean, that is not a status symbol to me.
Well, let's jump and go deeper on that again, where I'm going to throw back to you as a compliment, but also to touch on is I was half joking, but I meant what I said, where, I'm a full-time real estate investor. Okay. We've scaled our business. We're scaling again. Jack's full-time investor. I know how hard that is. I also know how hard it is to build a lifestyle on your terms because, let's talk about your mindset real quick. All right. Because you're going to have all these people. We always talk about your circle of influence. You go through this thing that people on the outside looking in think it's monumental. And it is. You did complete the task. To then have the mental fortitude to say, you know what? Instead of staying on this path, I'm going to pivot and I'm going to redesign because I know what's right and I know what's important to me. Talk about that decision, because that could not have been an easy one to make.
No, it absolutely isn't. And I mean, as we're recording this, everyone kind of knows that like I have my like notice to quit my own job that I've created for myself that I'm like afraid to send. And so it hasn't been easy to kind of reach this point. But that the other point is that I've always been like a really driven, goal-oriented person. And it kind of got to the point where it's just like, I don't want to create a 5-year plan for this business. Like, this is not like, I can't picture myself doing this for 30 more years, making a career out of it, let alone another 5 years. And as soon as I saw that part of it, I realized I'm like, there's something a little bit off. And then, you kind of go through like the business mindset stuff of like, well, let me just raise my rates and like, see if that like lowers the work. And I was charging 3 times the average rate I know. And people were still saying yes, which is great. It's a wonderful compliment to me. But like what I really fundamentally wanted was to not do this anymore. And I was trying to take the easy way out of making, pricing myself out of the market. And that wasn't happening. I was still really busy. And so when you realize that even the money isn't going to make you happier, like I'm charging 3 times as much as I did, a year and a half ago. If that's not going to get me there, then what am I doing? Literally, what am I doing? And that's where I realized I'm like, I'm a smart person. I've created a business once before. I've created, a real estate portfolio. I'll figure it out. Like I will literally just figure it out. And that's kind of where like the last 6 months or so have been in my head, and where I don't know where the full staircase is taking me at this point. I know I have landlord law school. I know I have my real estate. I know I could double down or triple down on either of them and I will do just fine. But whether that's what I do for 5 or 10 years, I don't know. And I don't know that I need to know right now. I just need to know that like what I was doing in my firm just wasn't it. And that was enough.
I greatly admire that. Like most people find out like when they're 65, maybe on their deathbed. Maybe that's why we asked a 90-year-old question that we're going to get to in a minute. Like most people wait their entire lives to figure out that they have regrets, that they didn't take this opportunity when it presented itself, or they didn't take this risk when it presented itself. And I think I just want to kind of reiterate that, like, people within the Tell Us Why community, like, this is something that you can do as well. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be all planned out. Like, if you are going to work and you're wasting your time, or like I was, that's why I say that. But like, you don't have to do this. Like, you can take a risk, you can fail, and then you can take a risk again. Like, you can go back and do what you wanted to do. Like, your passing the bar isn't going to go away, or your real estate license isn't going to go away. Like, it's still going to be there. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there.
I think that's a great answer, which Jack actually leads to one thing I'm dying to ask Bonnie. I'm probably more excited than I have been to ask a lot of guests. What is, and you can answer this from a lot of different perspectives, an investor, an attorney, whichever way you want. What is one piece of, actionable advice you would give the Tell Us Why community?
Gosh, I would do whatever you can to give yourself the flexibility of choice. And that's something that I didn't realize my parents were instilling at me at a very young age, but God, I could like kiss them and thank them over and over again. Now, I mean, and that's from, going to the college that was not necessarily the best college I got into, but the one that gave me the most money. And the same thing for law school. And so I am not afraid to say, like, I graduated law school and I had no student loan debt from undergrad or law school. And I know that there's not a lot of lawyers out there who are fortunate enough to say that. And a lot of that, has to do with my own work and, the scholarship money that I received, but also, some financial support from my parents as well, and the sacrifices that they made to be able to do that. Because I know that if I was saddled with the debt that a lot of my peers have, that I wouldn't have had that choice or that, I think, that confidence to be like, hey, I'm going to walk away from a stable career. And then to say a few years later, I'm going to walk away from another, business that I've created for myself. And it didn't feel like the good decision at the time. I'm not going to lie. Like, I wanted to go where my friends were going. I wanted to go to Miami. Like, I wanted to do things. And I think that like delayed gratification for the long-term result of like not having student loan debt or whatever that decision may be. Maybe that's like purchasing a smaller house, like a way smaller house than we could have, afforded, or living in like the world's tiniest apartment when I was in Philly with like literally half a closet and myself and my now husband, and my dog. And it just, a lot of those things I can now look back and say like, hey, that may have felt like a sacrifice at the time, but like what a gift it was to my future self.
That is awesome. That is a great answer.
Well, before we wrap it up and head to the big three, I want to talk about the transition of your business. Like, where is your business headed? I know we talked about it beforehand, but to put you on blast, so you send that email. Yeah. Where is your business headed?
Yeah. So I have officially like closed the doors to my law firm. I will never say never, but definitely not right now. And that's kind of where I've left things as for my law firm. And some of that's just kind of leaving doors open, just makes things easier from like an attorney ethics standpoint. There's a lot of like compliance things I have to do. It's not quite as simple of just like turning the lights off at a restaurant and saying like business is over. There's a lot of back end things that come to the closure of a law firm. But it is also very easy for me to like say like, here's an automated message on my voicemail and here's like a bounce back you're going to get from my email. It's like that part of it is very easy to do. And then on the other side, I have this business that I've created with templates and education for real estate investors that has just been so well received. And it's something that has taken me out of my own comfort zone. It's taught me a lot. It's kind of shed light on what I realized, like the real estate investing community, like they don't know what they don't know, and kind of just being able to be of service in a more cost-friendly way, I think, to real estate investors, in a way that feels like really in integrity to myself, and in a way that I can be more to a few people rather than trying to be everything to everyone, where, I'm working with people one-on-one as an attorney. And then I'm also, working with people through the course. And then I'm also, being my own real estate investor, my own mother, my own wife. And it was like kind of one too many hats to wear. Especially when one of them just kind of felt like a ball and chain. And no surprise there, that was my law firm at some point. Got to that point where it was just, there was no joy left in it for me. And so on to the next thing, sayonara.
That is great. And again, hats off to you for not only identifying that, but acting on it. I mean, we talk about intentional action all the time, and I love to see it. I mean, go back and listen to that on rewind a few times. That's intentional, that's thoughtful. It's not having it all mapped out, but it is the definition of we say it around here all the time, but bet on yourself. And that's exactly what Bonnie's doing.
Yeah.
With that, before we do get to the big three, I don't want to forget this because Jack will yell at me after the show. What is a book or resource you'd recommend to the Tell Us Why community?
Yeah. Does it happen to tie into the last thing we just talked about? Because
I could probably think of
Sheila's plugs are
one.
perfectly okay here.
Yeah.
I'm like such a bookworm that there's probably like 1,000,001. You know what? I'll say The Big Leap. The author's escaping me right now, but it has a lot about taking like these big kind of life leaps, betting on yourself, things like that.
That's another new one too. We are getting so many good answers on that lately.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that one. The Big Leap. Big Leap. I'm reading David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me right now. That was recommended, and then going into chop wood, carry water, and now I got to add The Big Leap. I mean, this keep them coming. Absolutely. So, Jack, that's awesome. And now you ready to put her on the hot seat here?
Yeah, let's do it.
It's now time for the Big Three segment, brought to you by QS Private Lending. Are you looking to finance your next deal quickly and reliably with less hassle and paperwork? QS Private Lending is one of the oldest and largest hard money lenders to real estate investors in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. Our quick and simple short-term loans require no appraisals and have enabled hundreds of builders and investors to profitably acquire and renovate thousands of residential and commercial properties. To experience the QS difference for yourself, call or text Luke Conroy today at 315-323-0250. That's 315-323-0250. QS Private Lending.
So these are the three questions we ask every guest every week. And the first question is the college question. So in your opinion, is college worth it?
Look, I think for some people, yes. I think increasingly, no. I will go back to what I said before is I would chase the money before you chase the status with any school, especially if you're not necessarily, or it may perhaps if you're thinking about like postgraduate studies. Look, if you want to be a dentist or a doctor or a lawyer, it's like, do not pay a scout. You obviously need to have an undergraduate degree to do that. But I have found that I have personally learned so much more through working than I have through studying, and that there's so much value, and the playing field has just been incredibly leveled, I found, over the last few years through ways of self-education, whether it's through books or podcasts or courses or masterminds or whatever the case may be, is that it's not the end all be all. Now, if you want to go into, Fortune 500 companies and, work your way all the way to the top, then yeah, you're probably going to need that. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to be an investor, if you want to be, work in real estate or whatever the case may be is, I'd say get your hands dirty. Get your hands dirty first. Another thing that, my dad didn't go right from high school to undergrad. He took some time off. He worked. He put himself through school that way. And I know that a lot of other countries kind of do it that way as well. My husband's Israeli, and so they have a military service before they go to college. And I think that there's just a lot of value if I was to talk to like an 18-year-old and just saying like, go out there and just like work for a few years or do AmeriCorps or join the army or like any of that kind of stuff and like figure yourself out first. Get your hands a little bit dirty, see what you like, what you don't like. Do you like working with people? Do you like working with computers? Whatever the case may be is, because that way you'll be able to make better decisions. I think there's a lot of unnecessary pressure that we put on like 17, 18, 19-year-olds to be able to say like, this is it, pick the career, then go. And I mean, I was full on that, that boat. I did not have a choice. I was going to college, but I think that's why I have a lot of like flux and like reflection in the past few years is because I never really did that. I never really had the chance to do that. I mean, I think people think that like college is the time to figure it out, but like college is also the time where they're like, pick your next classes, and this is the path, and this is your major, and like these are the number of credits you need left. And so I think we overestimate how much of that self-discovery is really happening in college. And I think don't be afraid to give yourself a break. Like you can literally always go to college. Like it's not going anywhere. You don't have to be the 18-year-old.
I like that a lot because I think the more that I reflect on it, I think a leap, what is it called? The leap year where you essentially like take a year off, leap year?
Yeah. Gap year.
Yep.
Like, I think that is extraordinarily valuable. Even if like some people, if you're, I guess, have rich parents or something like that, you can travel around Europe or backpack or something like that. But even just going to work, like you don't have to make that decision when you're a junior in high school. Like you don't know what you're doing at that point. You're like, if you're committing to college on your senior year of high school, you're committing to $400,000 in debt for most people. Like that's insane. That's absolutely insane. That's going to put you in a hole for the next 20 years of your life. Like it's not always the right decision. So I think I would highly recommend a leap year.
I
That's
think
gonna be my new go-to. Pick a leap
highly
year.
recommend we
We go
just
to
have an
college. Pick a
attorney.
leap year.
Yes, this is the first time someone who's actually got one of those degrees we always reference for that answer also gave perspective, which is great. So perfect transition to the next question we ask every guest every week here on the Tell Us Why podcast. What is one piece of actionable advice you go back and give to your 18-year-old self?
All right, it's a gap year. Producer called me out.
Definitely a gap year.
My bad.
I think it would have been to explore a little bit more, and to perhaps be okay with taking risks even back then. I think back then I kind of felt like I was on this track and that I couldn't do like the risky stuff until I checked all of the boxes. And at some point, like you realize that you're like just checking boxes for like the entirety of your 20s. And then like it was like the start of my 30s. And I was like, oh God, like all I have ever done is like, get straight A's and then, take the LSAT and then go to law school and then take the bar exam and then get, the clerkship after law school and then get the, the firm job and then do this and then do this and then do this. And I was just like, wait a second, like at what point am I supposed to like live and like figure this all out? It was just kind of just chasing achievements. And so I wish I would have gotten riskier earlier. I like that I have the confidence that I'm doing it now, but like certain things, like I wanted to like go be an au pair for a year, my gap year between undergrad and law school. And my parents were like, no, that's not a good idea. And I was just like, okay, parents, like, that's not a good idea. I'm not going to do it. And I kind of just like, I wish I would have just like explored that in that way and just been like, you know what, that's great. They gave me their opinion. If not, I will, I'll still be okay at the end of the day. Like it's going to be fine.
Yep, that's awesome. And we hear it all the time. And it's funny, that circle of influence is so impactful. And that's another great example there. So, all right, Jack, this is going to be a good one. I'm curious what she's going to say.
What's one thing you would want your 90-year-old self to say to you?
90?
90. On your deathbed, whatever you want.
Basically on my deathbed to say to you.
Now. You've lived your life.
Stop with the deathbed talk 2 weeks in a row with this guy.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's a reflection. Like you're at the end of your life. Type of thing.
You are a mess. Just say 90 and leave it alone. So,
that not that I didn't live without regrets, but that I didn't live without trying and without getting uncomfortable, because we only get like one shot at this. And I know for a lot of us, myself especially, like I come from like a family that like worked in government, stayed there for, did their 30 years, retired, got their pension, and like then like lived their lives. And that was a very, I think, financially responsible thing to do. It was very comfortable. It was very, I wouldn't say easy, but it was a path. And I know that I don't want that. I'll say even that like stability, not that I don't want like financial stability, but I want to explore. I want to, write a book. I want to get messy and travel and make mistakes and try and learn and try something else and be like a scientist of my own life. And I hope that, when I'm 90, I can look back and say like, hey, I did all of that. Whether I did everything, I don't know, but I did stuff. And that I didn't leave a rock unturned.
Yeah, that's great. Like, that is really great. I like that.
I told you she was going to be good.
You don't want to live your life with regrets. You need to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And like the more you do that, the happier you're gonna end up being. Like I tell my son that all the time.
Yeah,
I
think
tell
that's
you
exactly
that all the time. So look at that. Isn't that ironic?
I just quote Mike to my son all day long.
Yes, that's a scary proposition. But Bonnie, you've had so many great gems. Where can people get more in touch? I believe you have a podcast that I can't wait to check out. I hope the community will too. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I have a podcast, excuse me, it's called House of Horrors, where every week I bring on different real estate investors and we share our horror stories, because I kind of found that there's this like rose colored glasses put over real estate investing and like nobody talks about the bad stuff. Yeah. And like, I don't want to be Debbie Downer. Like we try to keep this actionable, like lessons learned, but I also think we need to like destigmatize like screwing up a tenant turnover. And like that way we can all learn from each other and be like, hey, this is what it looked really bad. Or like before we hopped on, I just recorded an episode with someone who's like, I really bungled my tenant due diligence and I got a really bad tenant. And this is how horrible it's been. And here's how I've changed my intake process from now on. And
if that's the worst that's happened to you, I
know. I was like, well, last week she like bungled a tenant He's like, still not in there. And they're like pooping and peeing all over the walls. And so I'm like, it can get a lot worse. And I'm like, at least your tenant's still paying. She just doesn't want to leave.
Yeah, I got so.
Exactly. I'm like, I'm sure you've got a bunch with 200 doors. You've seen some stuff.
Next guest.
Oh yeah, I think I might be 8 episodes. We have to be careful. I mean, our very first deal, the guy shooting guns in the woods. I get a call from him in a jail cell because he got arrested throwing a bonfire in the front yard of Kenny Bunkport, burning trash. Which we got a call yesterday. I guess the furniture he was burning was actually antique furniture worth thousands of dollars. I just learned.
Oh.
So 4 years later, talked to a local in town. Oh man, that's
just like a him problem.
Listen, that's not even like in my top 10 so far.
Oh,
so,
no.
So
We've got like multiple dead bodies. We've got like fires. We've got, trust me. Yeah.
We had, oh God, yeah, I could go. But that's awesome. So what was the name of the podcast one more time?
It's called House of Horrors.
All right, we will check that out. Any parting words for the Tell Us Why community?
No, I'd say go out there, have fun, take risks, and do some shit.
Love it. And where can people get in touch with you to learn more?
Sure. So my website is bonniegalam.com, my name. And I love hanging out on Instagram when I'm not like super stuffy like I am right now at Bonnie Galam ESQ. That's where I like to spend a lot of time.
I love it. And Jack, where can people learn more about the Tell Us Why podcast?
You need to go check out our website, telluswhypodcast.com. If you don't already follow us on social media, you can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. All the links are in the description below.
That's right. And check us out on Spotify, iTunes, anywhere you listen to podcasts. Leave a rating review. It's a big help. You're going to get great gems. This episode for Bonnie, you heard it. $4.50 an hour. You're getting it for free, live and unplugged, which is great. Share it. Check it out. Jack, quote of the week.
All right. We got a JFK quote this week. There are risks and costs to action, but they are far less than the long-range risk of comfortable inaction. That actually turned out really well.
Yeah, it is.
That was a
well
chef's
done.
kiss.
Boom.
Well done. All right.
All right. So that is it for today. Be sure to join us for next week's episode. And until next week,
Bet on yourself.